This week's Parsha is Parshat Behaalotecha. The Parsha tells us that Moshe's job was difficult, looking after 3 million people, being really the only rabbi for all their shalas and all their questions and all their problems. And Moshe says to Hashem, we need leaders, we need more people, we need to delegate. And Hashem says to Moshe, Esvali shivim ish miziknei Yisrael, gather for me 70 men. And this is the beginning of the very first Sanhedrin. Gather for me 70 from the elders of each of the tribes. And Moshe finds those individuals, and they are endowed with the spirit of Hashem, with Ruach HaKodesh, with prophecy, to the point where 2 of them even saw the death of Moses in their prophecy, and the Torah recounts that as well. But it is here that the very first Sanhedrin, the very first court of justice for the Jewish people, is put together by Moshe himself. Now, what does the CV of these gentlemen look like? How did Moshe choose these 70 individuals? Did they all have to know the whole of Shas, all the Gemorahs? Did they have to know the Tanakh, the Bible off by heart? What is their CV exactly? How did they become the very first Sanhedrin? And in fact, the Gemara in Sanhedrin, the Mishnah in Sanhedrin teaches us the prerequisites that a judge needed. For example, he had to know all 70 languages. He had to be fluent in witchcraft and wizardry. And of course, he had to know all of the Torah. He also had to be fabulously wealthy. But these very first judges, there was only one prerequisite. And that is, it was easy for Moshe to find these 70 men because they were taskmasters in Egypt. And when I say taskmasters, they never did the beatings of the Jews who never did their job. They received the beatings from the Egyptian overlords when the Jews never did their jobs. When the Jews could not, when the Bnei Yisrael, more correctly, could not complete their quota, instead of the taskmasters beating them, they would take it on their back from the Egyptian overlords. And these were the men that Moshe chose to be the very first Sanhedrin. And that's amazing, because we're not talking about their brilliance in Torah. We're not talking about how clever they were. They had one quality, and that one quality is called Nosei Ba'ol Im Chaveiro. And in fact, it's one of the 48 paths to wisdom, and that is someone who can carry the load of another person, someone who can bear the burden with his brother. Nosei Ba'ol Im Chaveiro. He feels the pain of another human being. He feels empathy, and he does something about it. And for Moshe Rabbeinu and for Hashem, that very first Sanhedrin, that is all they needed. They needed to find individuals that had already displayed that type of proclivity, that they had that in Egypt. And indeed, Moshe found these individuals, and they made up the very first Sanhedrin. And often when you read stories about the giants of Judaism, the Gedolim, yes, their Torah knowledge was unbelievable and unsurpassed by anyone else in their generation. But then also read the chapters about the type of human beings they were. Read the chapters about how they cared about the pain and the suffering of another person. Read the chapters that tell us about their amazing chesed that they had. Yes, it was all overshadowed by their brilliance in Torah. But of course, as far as Hashem is concerned, you only become a giant in Israel, a gadol in Israel. B'nosei ba'ol im chaveiro, if you're somebody who can carry the burden, who can share the load, who can care about another person. That comes first, and then mastery of Torah comes second. Shabbat Shalom.